Katie Kempner, and welcome to Perspectives here at Advertising Week at the Huffington Post stage. Perspectives is a series of inspiring conversations with remarkable working women who are balancing busy lives. And this is Shenan Reed, the president of NBC, president of Digital. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
You said it's like Shenandoah. You were
like
named
Shenandoah.
after Shenandoah.
I was named after my grandfather's farm, which was Shenandoah Acres.
Which is it sounds lovely.
Yeah, it is. Shenandoah, we think, means daughter of the stars. So in my parents' own way, it was naming me Star.
I love it.
Awesome hippie parents.
So after being born and being named Star,
yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about how you've moved throughout your career to where you are today?
Sure, yeah. So I, as a young girl, I was into musical theater, and I did a lot of musical theater growing up. I performed with the Houston Grand Opera and the Houston Symphony as a child in the children's chorus. Grew up doing theater for 18 years and loving every minute of it, and aspired to someday make my way to Broadway and be the next Cheetah Rivera. So I always aspired to be Cheetah Rivera, and moved to New York, had an amazing start to my career in New York in my early 20s, and had this moment of realization that while I loved being on the stage, I was probably not going to be Cheetah. I could survive long enough to not actually be a waitress while I was performing, so that's a huge step if you know New York City theater at all, but I wasn't going to have my name above the lights, above the marquee. So I had this moment of, what do I do now? And so I went back to college and I got a degree in speech communications with a minor in fine arts. And I looked at what was happening around me. And my mother was working for Bristol Myers Squibb. She was their first manager of customer-specific data. So this was about 20 years ago. And at the time, she was really, truly trying to understand what else consumers were putting into their shopping carts, and what else they were bringing to the store, and what else they were buying, and how they were pairing products. And I found it fascinating. So I went to go work for a company called Spectra, which is now part of Nielsen, doing consumer packaged goods analytics. And I love analytics. So theater, creative mind, analytics, all about the science mind, kind of bringing the two together. Loved every minute of it. And then a friend of a friend my husband actually had a friend come over and talk to him about online advertising because he was starting his own company, my husband, and this friend offered me a job in an online advertising agency in 1999. And I said no, because I was quite happy at my job. And my husband said, "You're crazy, it's the internet, you need to go do this, the internet's the thing." Did I mention this was 1999?
Right.
Yeah. So I said, fine. It was $5,000 more than what I was making. It was, instead of going to Hackensack, New Jersey, I could go to Manhattan. Seemed like a fairly good deal, and I'd learn about something new. So I did. And then I realized I loved online advertising. Like, I just felt like there was such opportunity and promise there, and it's a world that's constantly changing. The bubble burst, and I ended up starting my own agency in March of 2001 with my husband and another partner that we grew and ran for 13 years and then sold to a creative agency. Spent 2 years shepherding it through the creative agency and decided it was time to spread my wings a little bit and try something new, and found my way to Marla and Carl over at MEC.
There is one part of your career that you didn't mention, and I'm interested in it just from, yes. I mean, you are also a beauty queen and an NFL cheerleader and Miss Manhattan, correct?
Yes. So in my performing career, I had this moment where my mother reached out and she gave me a phone call when I was in college, and she said, "There's a dance audition today, you should go." And I said, "What's it for?" And she said, "The Oilers." And I went, "I'm not a cheerleader, I'm a professional dancer, singer, actress, I'm not a cheerleader." And she said, "They're building a dance team, it's going to be like the Lakers girls, you should go. If nothing else, it's a free dance class." And I said, "All right, fine. Free dance class, two of my favorite words in the world, why not?" So I went, and ultimately from 500 girls down to the 34 that made it through to being Oilers cheerleaders, I made it through and spent 1 year being a Houston Oilers dancer, which was it was an amazing experience. I think the experience of being on the Astrodome floor in front of crowds that large, the importance of, it's funny, you don't think of cheerleaders as being all that important to the game, but like our job was to keep the fans happy. Like, we wanted to keep them energized, because the more energized, the louder the fans become, the better it is for the players. So we're really there to rile them up. And I've kind of translated that into my job. Like, there are moments where my job is to go in and kind of rile people up and get them excited and get them going. And so I'm kind of pull on some of those same skills. The Miss Manhattan thing is interesting. So I spent a few years competing in the Miss America organization. I had to take my singing and dancing experience and use it somewhere, right? And I needed help paying for college. And Miss America is the largest scholarship organization in the world for women. So it was a lot of money towards my college education that came from competing in Miss America. Competing and winning Miss Manhattan, the year that I did, I had an amazing year. It was 1996. And I spent the year with Mayor Giuliani, going from event to event and really helping raise awareness of arts education and the importance of the arts in education, and getting to speak to different civic leaders and different organization leaders and trying to make a difference. It's great.
Which is really interesting because you think like beauty queen, cheerleader, businesswoman, these things seem very far apart from each other, but so they've taught you skills really that ended up translating into what you're doing now, right?
Absolutely.
Which leads me to what I want to ask you about, which is your philosophy of being a duck if you're a woman.
Sure.
So you have to explain that.
Sure. I had an amazing opportunity to speak to some young women who were coming up in the industry, and the question that was asked of me was, what's it like being the only woman in the room? And having started my own business with two other men, granted one of them being my husband, and then selling my business and going through the transaction process, during that entire process, I was often, if not always, the only woman in the room in those conversations. My husband, I have to give him complete credit, had this, he read Lean In, right? And so he's listening to it on an audio tape and he kept pausing, stopping, and asked me a question. What was it like to be the only woman in the room in those conversations? And was that awkward? And was that strange? Or did you ever feel, and I said, I didn't, but I know a lot of women do, right? I knew that I was kind of in my element. I always got along with men better than I did with women. I was an NFL cheerleader. That actually kind of gets me a lot of points in interesting situations. I can talk about sports. I can talk about football. I win some little awards along the way in that. And I think that, and I'm like to think that I'm intelligent and I know my business and I stand up for my point of view. And I was raised to stand up for my point of view, and I give that to my parents entirely. So how do you not back down in those situations? How do you get yourself invited into that room? What I wanted to get across to these women, and what I've been trying to get across to women who work for me ever since, is you want to be in the room. We're not going to change the conversation. We're not going to change how we work we're not going to break that glass ceiling unless we're actually the people in the room. And I'm fortunate enough to have a very large percentage of our executive team at MEC be women. Our CEO is a woman, our head of people and culture is a woman, myself. So you've got 3 out of the 9 people running the executive committee are women. My digital leadership team, 5 out of 9 are women. I love seeing that change happen, but we're not going to get invited to the room unless we can play along a little bit. And so what I try to explain to these women is you've got to play the game a little. And I'm not saying that if somebody ever touches you inappropriately or does something really wrong that you should not speak up and say something. Of course. However, if you get offended every time somebody starts an inappropriate joke about 2 Playboy bunnies walk into a bar, if that offends you, and you're going to have a hard time getting invited back into that room. And like I said, we're not going to be able to change the conversation until we're actually in the room and we're leading the room. So I tell them to be a duck. Let things roll off your back.
Be a duck.
If I got offended by every conversation that I was a part of, or every sideways comment about my looks or the looks of other people around us, I would have a hard time being where I am today.
So to build on that, great advice of being a duck.
Be a duck.
I just want to ask, and I like to end my interviews by just asking, if there's one piece of advice, in addition to being a duck, that has helped guide you through your life and through your career, that you can share with us.
I'd have to say it's probably the phrase that my dad gave me as a kid that has been kind of the mantra of our family, which was always, we're here for a good time, not a long time, which kind of plays into being a duck, right? Enjoy every moment of it. Don't get stressed out about the little things. We're here for a good time, not a long time. Let it go.
Well, that's a perfect way to end today. So thank you so much. It was great to meet you.
Great to meet you as well. My pleasure.